guess I'm sowing. Yeah, I'm sowing. I guess I'm.
Ciao, buongiorno a tutti ragazzi. Thank you very much for listening and tuning into the Inter Worldwide podcast, where we are bringing you another edition in this international break. Looking forward to a couple of qualifiers, which we will get to soon. I want to introduce to you a couple of guests. I've got one of the usual suspects in Alessandro. How you doing, brother?
Very good, very good. How are you, Anthony?
Very good. And it's an honor and privilege to introduce my special guest today. He is the sports journalist for Eurosport News and has a very active social media presence and a media presence within the Inter community. It's Siavoush Fallahi. Thank you, Sia. Thank you so much for coming on.
Hi, thanks for having me.
No problem. So, Sia, we just wanted to get a couple of thoughts from you to start off this podcast. Overall, what's been your initial reaction to the ragazzi, to Conte, and to our start to this campaign under new leadership?
I think it's been a fantastic start to the season. I mean, going 6 victories in a row, winning the derby and against Lazio, and that obviously we lost last weekend against Juve, but I think they have a better team. We'll probably come back to that later. I think that the talk has always been about Conte's team this season, that it's been easy opponents, right? And I think it might be like that, but I think people need to consider the fact that Inter didn't beat easy opponents last seasons. So I think that football-wise and mentality-wise, I think that the things have looked very, very well. Obviously, there was disappointment against in the first Champions League game against Prague, but you know, it's things that happened, and they're actually a very good team. So I think that the only thing we can be a bit disappointed with is not having got more points in Champions League, because we're in a very, very difficult situation in the group now, where we actually probably need to beat Dortmund in at least one of the 2 games and maybe even get a good result away. So I think the only thing that it doesn't worry me, to be honest, because I expected difficulties in Champions League. But looking at the way we performed in the league, I'm very, very happy. I just think that we needed one more player, and the longer for the midfield and the longer the season goes, I think that we're seeing that more and more, because the team, the starting 11, is really, really good. And since Barella has come into it, I think that we're playing very well. But I think that the squad is a bit short, and I think it shows as soon as Barella or Sensi aren't playing, because we lose a lot of quality and a lot of what made this team so good when we actually play well and perform.
Yeah, I would agree, and I think most fans would agree. That's what let us down in our match against Juve was, the lack of quality coming from the bench, even against Barcelona. Alessandro, I wanted to ask you, what was your reaction to the Juventus game, my friend?
I was a little bit disappointed, but overall, we were playing against the best team in our league, and it's been like that for many years, too many years. But I think we're getting there. So I take the positive side from this team, and as Sia said just now, I think the main difference at the moment is the players that were on the bench. Basically, if you look at Juventus formation, they have another team that compete for at least European position just on the bench. And if you look at our players after the first 11s, if they can save themselves from the relegation, it will be a miracle, in my opinion. So that's the main difference. It's been a long journey, and we are getting in that position. So if it's not this year, hopefully next year we will be able to compete with Juventus, Barcelona, and all the main teams in Europe.
Yeah, absolutely. And staying on you for a second, Alessandro, if you had to pick one man of the match for Inter against Juventus and maybe someone who was maybe the worst of the pack, who would you choose?
Well, let's see. Um, the I think the Vry was really good overall, and I didn't like the approach of Lukaku overall. I know it wasn't 100%, and I know that against the big team is not the best player, but still, I think that it was really important for us, at least to keep the ball out of the defense and bring the team up. And it wasn't able to do that. And it happened before with Lazio when Cherby was just messing around with him. And I have to say, this game, if um, if Bonucci was on Lukaku, Lukaku was like not not seeing the ball at all. So that was a little bit disappointing.
Yeah, fair enough.
What do you think?
Yeah, I do think Lukaku was a little bit poor. He did drop back a little bit in midfield to pick the ball up a fair bit as Juve kind of pressed us into our final third. But at the end of the day, he was kind of shaking off a little injury, and I don't want to put any sort of negative attention on the guy because it is against a team like Juventus, and he was just one of many players in our starting 11 that I think were struggling a little bit, especially in that first half. Sia, what was your overall opinion on the match against Juventus? Did you find that the officiating was okay? And what did you think of our boys in the first and second half?
I think so. I think the start was a bit too chaotic. Like it just seemed like Inter wanted to show, now this is different year. We can play, and Juve just were 100% up to it and won all the duels, and managed to get their early goal that they usually manage to get. And I really hate that when we play against Juve, because in one way or another, it just feels like when they come out well, they always manage to capitalize. And I think that that's a problem, because that just gives you, you just have to start the game from being down. But I think what surprised me was the how well Inter reacted to going down after just a couple of minutes. Obviously, the first goal could have been avoided. Like I think there are many mistakes in that attack. But when you face good teams, this is things that will happen more often than when you face worse teams, because that's what good teams and good players do, right? They expose and cause mistakes. However, I was very happy to see the reaction of the team, like how they reacted after it, because I think that after Juve's goal, Inter played some of the best football this season. Like they continuously managed to resolve situations, get out of pressure, and come to the offensive half. And we got the penalty and put it away. I think that just after Sensi was injured, we didn't manage to do any of the good stuff. Like if we managed to create an attacking move or an attacking chance, it wasn't because of the fluidity or the quality of Inter's game that happened. I think it was much more because of chance, or not. It wasn't like methodical, Conte build up play. So I think that we lost very much when that happened. I think I think Lukaku has been too criticized for this performance, because yes, he did give away some very good attacks and some very good, very easy passes. I 100% agree with that. I am the first person to expect more from him in the duels, right? Because 90 kilos, he should be able to outpower anyone physically. But I think that he also did very many good things that, if they don't result in a goal, they're always forgotten. I think I was more surprised to see Godin struggle so much that he did, and then also I think Lautaro Martinez did very, very well. Like I wouldn't have took him off. I would have kept him on and took Lukaku off. I understand that Politano and Lukaku maybe complete each other better, but if you have a player who is playing as Lautaro was doing that game, like even if he wasn't so active or participating at all times, when he got the ball, something happened. So I think that that's a player that I'd keep on. More than that, I think there's really not much to say. I think that Juve are a better team than Inter. I think they are very, very much like further forward. I think that, it's just, you can just watch the difference in wages. I think that they are double or triple what Inter has, and that obviously gives them the possibility to keep more class players in the squad, but also in the team. And when they go looking for Higuain, we go looking for Vecino. When they don't choose to have Ramsey on, we have Politano. So I like our players. I like Vecino, I like Politano, but the difference in class, like they're keeping Mandzukic outside the squad. It's just, I think Conte said it well. Like, we've been able to play on the draw, like on the same level with Barca and Juve, that are honestly two teams that are very much better than us. And I think that's a signal of growth, because even though I would have loved to get a good result, it's difficult when they are better. And Higuain, it's just a quality player. So that ended up hurting us. About the refereeing, I would need to see the game again, because I was at the stadium. So I had the feeling that the first half an hour they were just throwing themselves at every slightest contact to try to get, I don't know, yellow cards for Inter players, or to mess up the rhythm of the play. And I think Rocky let the game go quite fluidly. So when they understood that there weren't going to be any yellow cards, or anything punishing Inter, they stopped doing what they did. On the penalty situation, I think it was a clear penalty, and more than that, I think that he had a good game, to be honest. I think that the game wasn't decided by the referees, and that's actually why I'm so calm about it. Because when going up and, seeing this game, there's been so many times the referee has had a direct impact on the result. But this time I actually felt like Juve won because they were superior. And I hate losing, of course, but I hate losing because of the referee even more. And I think, for me, in my opinion, I wrote it as well, I think Juve were better. I think they were better. I think they deserved to win, seeing the 90 minutes. I just think, if I have to criticize Inter for something, is that when you go up to the 78th or 80th minute, you need to be able to keep the 1-1 result, especially when you're at top of the league.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree there. Just echoing what you said about Lautaro Martinez having an impressive performance. He's really returned to form. Alessandro, are you happy to see Lautaro return to form? And would you say there are any aspects of his game that he can still improve on?
Well, I mean, it's gonna improve the connection, the feeling that they have with Lukaku, and that's the main goal of the coaching of Conte and everything. Other than that, he's so young, and he's doing stuff that many other players older than him they're still struggling to do. So, and I mean, if you look at even the Argentina coach just today or yesterday, he said that Lautaro is at the center of this team, of the Argentinian team. And I mean, if you think of the strikers they have, it's pretty impressive, don't you think?
Yeah, definitely think so. The caliber, the depth is there as well. It's so hard for him to break into that team, so it's very impressive that he's been able to get there. Staying on you, Alessandro, we received the news this morning that Samir Handanovic is looking to extend his contract by an extra 2 years until 2022, with a slight pay rise as well. Are you happy to see Handanovic extend for another 2 years? This will put him at 37 years old when he's still at our club.
Yeah, I think is well deserved, and we know the goalkeepers can play along with the other positions, and I don't see why not. And even if next year or the year after we see that it's not at the same level anymore, he can still give something to the team in terms of leadership, in terms of helping new goalkeepers, or just being part of the team. So yeah, I'm totally a favor for this decision, in favor.
Cool, me too, me too. He's really just showing that he's still doing well with age, and although it is going to catch up to him eventually, still in my books, he's earned that extension. Sia, would you say that you're happy to see Samir Handanovic extend for another couple of years? And if you would name one other keeper in Serie A that you think Inter should keep their eyes on, maybe to replace him, who would you say?
No, I think it's a well-deserved extension of the contract. I mean, as long as he's well physically, I think there's no problem, and he's not missing any games, so 100% fine. In Serie A, I don't know. I liked Cranio before he was injured, but now you never know how he comes back. Was it Musso that was standing in goal for Udinese that's having an interesting season? Because it seems like a goalkeeper with a very good base, a very nice set of qualities that could have a very good future because he's young. He's Argentinian, and we obviously have good feeling for Argentinians at Inter. More than that, I'm not sure what Serie A goalkeepers I'd look for, because probably I'd prefer to go elsewhere for a new goalkeeper. But at the moment, I think it's nice to not have to look for that position, because it's one that if you need to resolve it, it can cause a gigantic matter of problems. So
Yeah, and
yeah.
Yeah, and as we've seen in some of the instances overseas, bucket loads of money these days as well, because the position is in such high demand. Some of the ridiculous price tags and fees that get slapped on goalkeepers can almost throw out a club's entire budget for a transfer window. So I'd agree, it's definitely deserved to get Samir Handanovic locked down for another 2 seasons until we sort out a more permanent solution. We don't speak much about rival clubs, especially when we don't have a fixture against them. But AC Milan this morning have confirmed the sacking of their coach Giampaolo after just 7 league fixtures. He has acquired only 9 points from 7 matches, and despite getting 3 points at the weekend at Genoa, Milan were far from good. In fact, they were quite bad, and a draw would have been a much more justified result. It looks as though that Stefano Pioli is going to take over at the helm. It's not an interim decision. He's going to sign for a season and a half, it seems. First of all, Alessandro, what's your reaction to the current mess? Would be an absolute understatement. The mess and the managerial merry-go-round circus that is at Milan. Brother, they should have just kept Gattuso, to be honest.
Yeah, I think that would be a good statement. And we were talking about Milan's situation during the summer transfer, and the weird situation they had at that time, and now it's pretty worse because not only they're paying Giampaolo, they're paying a new coach, and they need to change the system. And at the moment, Giampaolo wasn't playing the player that they invested for. So I don't know what is going to happen, but at the same time, I don't want to say too many negative things, because we were in the same position not too long ago, and I can relate to that. I can feel the struggle, and so I don't want to say that much. I just think this year Pioli will stabilize the situation, and if they're lucky, if they can fix it quickly, maybe they will be able to get into Europe at the end of the year. Otherwise, I don't know. They just need to focus on next year, kind of try new players, and get ready for next year more than anything. then I don't know. What's
Yeah.
your take?
My take on it, I think they're in a little bit of a situation here. I'm not too sure why you'd replace a manager like Gianpaolo with a manager like Pioli. Like, that suggests to me that there's some personal differences with some of the bigger players, or maybe with Boban or Maldini, because you wouldn't necessarily sack Gianpaolo for Pioli. You'd sack Gianpaolo for someone of superior quality. Whereas now they've pretty much thrown in the towel for the season and said, okay, we're just looking for, as you said, someone to stabilize more, a just above average manager to take over and see the season out. I just think it highlights a lack of ambition on their part. It's only 7 games into the season. Maybe they could have made an effort to get Gattuso back, or I'm not too sure. I'm not too sure financially what they're going through at the moment. Maybe Sia can shed a little bit more light. First of all, what's your opinion on the whole situation at Milan? Did you make anything of the Spalletti rumors? Do you think Spalletti would have spoken to them at all? And overall, where do you think it's going to go from here for Milan, not only for the rest of the season, but for the next few years, Sia?
I think they're in trouble, like exactly as Inter was in financial fair play when it was as worst. Because the thing in football is that I think is common for all the countries that is play is that the team that has the most money, has the highest wages, usually is the team that is winning or competing to win. Very few exceptions also in European football. Like we have Atletico Madrid, we have in the Champions League. Maybe Liverpool, they've of course spent very much money the last few years, but Tottenham last season in the final wasn't one of those teams you'd expect to be there. Same with Roma in the semifinals. But usually in the Champions League and in the big leagues, the teams that spend the most win. And I think that Milan's problem was spending very much money without being able to get the Champions League out of it. So they played at high stakes, and they kind of, I think for now, it seems they lost. So they have to do something different. And I think that seeing what they're doing now, it's just like seeing Inter, that, until Spalletti came in and after Leonardo left, it's just like seeing the same thing happening to them that Inter has been through. And I think they're in a very problematic situation because they can't sign good enough players, to get out of the situation and get into the Champions League. They probably can't pay a coach too much money either. So I think when Inter got Spalletti, Inter had a good team that for me was underperforming before. But I think that if Milan would have gotten Spalletti, I'm not sure they would have made the Champions League anyway, because I think that the quality in their team and like Inter had Icardi and Perisic and these guys that will make the difference, at least in Serie A. So I think that they're in a very difficult situation to handle. I think that hiring Gianpaolo from the first start was wrong, because he plays that 4-3-1-2, and I don't see the Milan squad adapted to that, because he doesn't have any type of striker that he likes. He doesn't have the trequartista type that he likes. He doesn't have any midfielder that he likes. I think the only player that he probably liked in that team was Romagnoli and Donnarumma, and no one else. So I'm not sure why they got him from the beginning. I think that Pioli at least has the capacity to play another system, to play 4-2-3-1 or 4-3-3, which would get the most out of a player like Suso, who could do the difference at Milan. But more than that, I think that their problems are going to continue, and they have the financial fair play situation, which will eventually only get worse when the last few years come back to them. So I think they're in a very, very difficult situation. I think that getting Spalletti would have helped, but it would have been better to get him in the beginning of the season. I think that Spalletti, no matter rumors and the things about him accepting Milan, I think that he could probably accept Milan, but I don't think that he sees that as the job of his life, or the job that makes him come back, because it seems that after his brother died and after the last inter-season, it seems that he's having a good time relaxing and being out of football for a while. And I'm not sure that Milan job is the perfect job for him to take to get back on track. So I'm sure he listened. I'm sure he could have accepted, but I'm also quite sure Inter weren't going to do neither Milan or Spalletti any favor at this stage, because even if it's quite a lot of money that Inter is paying Spalletti, it's quite little money if you look in the longer run and reinforcing a rival. I think Pioli might have a good run in the beginning, but I think in the end it will all come back to the quality of the Milan team that isn't high enough. So I think that will eventually show in the end.
Yeah, I would have to agree for the most part as well, especially about the whole Spalletti not having the personnel to execute any of his tactics at this Milan side. You know, he did come into an Inter side which did have a core set of players that he could rely on. He could definitely rely on Handanovic and Milan Skriniar at the back. He had players like Perisic and Icardi who could make the difference. Him coming into Milan now really wouldn't help anything. He doesn't have the personnel in midfield in order to play that double pivot role, and it just wouldn't work out. In terms of Pioli, I think once again he can maybe stabilize and help them get through results. The thing is, when you look at the calendar, Milan have just kind of come through an easy period of fixtures in the grand scheme of things. I think they're playing Lecce this week, and that'll be their last easy fixture. They've played Udinese, they've played Brescia already as well. They haven't really had too many hard fixtures. Pretty soon they'll take on Juventus and Napoli and Roma all in the space of 4 games. So I don't know, it's all about for them a momentum thing now. They'll coast on momentum, and every positive result needs to be cherished and piggybacked on in the next fixture. All right, we're going to move on to a little bit of talk about Alexis Sanchez. First of all, Sia, we'll go straight to you. What are your thoughts on Alexis Sanchez so far at Inter? And word has come out that Manchester United will be looking to coup 25 million euro in order to offload him permanently to us. Would you be taking Alexis Sanchez at 25 million, or maybe it's a little bit too early to ask, man?
Yeah, I think it totally depends on what he shows during the season, because I think this season has the potential to be decided by the difference that Alexis can or can't make. Because seeing that we didn't get Dzeko, who I think would have been fantastic for Inter, and seeing that we didn't get a guy like Llorente, you know, who gets you a couple of goals and who does the difference. And seeing as I think that Lautaro, if he has a good season, he'll score 15 or at most 20 goals in Serie A. I think that Sanchez, if Inter is going to do something important, he will need to be the guy who comes in and makes the difference and scores goals. And so that's where the thing is, right? So if he comes back to the Sanchez that we saw at Arsenal, that we saw at Udinese, at Barca, I think 25 million for a play like that is nothing. But if he's not going to be that guy, I think they will hesitate to spend that money. I've always liked this player, but in this beginning of the season, I just think it's not the player that I was used to seeing, because I can see him, you know, when he has a 1-against-1 situation, you know, I can see him hesitate, you know, but 5 years ago, he would have taken the ball, he would have gotten past, he would have scored. I think that it's up to Conte to kind of revive him and getting, you know, him into the mental and physical shape to perform again, and also to believe in himself. I think that Sampdoria game, because the thing with class players, and I think Alexis is a class player, is that even when they aren't on top, I think they can make the difference. And I think against Sampdoria, we saw a glimpse of what this guy can do, because it doesn't matter that, yeah, he was lucky to get shot by Sensi and it went into goal. He was in the right position, you know, he created his luck. Even if that second goal was a missed out shot, he was ready to take the run and to get the shot on goal. And he was actually doing good things until he had that dive and got sent off. So I think that him making the difference, getting 2 goals in that game, even if it was credit to Sensi involved in the goals, I think that's a good signal for me, because we have a player who's making the difference even when he isn't near his top or standard level. So if he manages to do what he knows how to do, I think that Inter won't hesitate on spending the money for him, because it's a fantastic player to have, and Inter needs his explosive, the speed, the goals. I think we need that from a player who's also played at the highest level.
Yeah, I would agree for the most part. We definitely do need the goals coming from all angles in the attack. And he's a player that, you can put him in one position, but he's definitely more than capable of shifting anywhere in that front three and behind the strikers as well. So that versatility is something that Conte is going to need across three competitions. Alessandro, we'll go on to you. Now, let's talk a little bit about the international break, which will have two fixtures for the Azzurri. Do you want to take it from here, man?
Sure. So we're gonna play against Greece in green, brand new jersey, and at least for what I read in Italy, everybody's going crazy about this green and as this new um, upsetting jersey, and I don't see why, but what you guys, first of all, what you guys think about that? You see the jersey, or what do you think, Anthony?
Yeah, it's pretty nice. I like it. I actually really like it, man. I think it's fresh. I know a couple of us at Inter Worldwide already ordered one straight away when it came out. I might reserve it till I see it in the flesh against Greece, but I actually like it, man. Sia, do you like
Siad, have you seen the jersey?
Yeah, the green one.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's beautiful. It's
All right.
fantastic.
Okay.
I like it a lot. Like, design wise, I think it's fantastic, and it's a third shirt. Like, I understand the guys being, it's not Azzurri, it's not Italy, but it's a third shirt. Like, I don't know. It's just, I've seen Inter play in red, so I don't think. Also, I don't think, green. It's a part of the Italian flag. So
Exactly.
so I don't. I think I really like that shirt. It's really
All
nice.
right.
I could
Okay.
have wear one myself. Yeah.
So I'm glad at least here we all agree on
Yeah.
the nice jersey. And then speaking about the fixture, apparently D'Ambrosio, Magic Danilo, is gonna play on the starting 11, and Barella is a maybe, is contending a position with Bernardeschi, so that's good news for us. And I'm sure if Sensi wasn't injured, it would be part of the team as well. So, do you know anything about the Greek team? What do you expect from this fixture?
Uh, so I used to work with the European and World Cup qualifiers, because we had those right. But since we lost them, I'm not really into national team football anymore. I follow the big teams. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know a lot about the Greek team. I just I would, if I talked about them, I would say things that I didn't know, probably. But I know the Italian team, and I think they look better than in very much time. I think Mancini is getting the right kind of spirit and football out of the guys, and I think it's good to see Barella. I think because he was struggling until he got those minutes in the national team last time, and I think that he really needed to play. Like, he really needed to get football in his legs, and I think that the national team did that for him. I'm actually happy that Sensi is missing out on the national team break, because he just played too much football. I think things are like, more than that. I think things are looking good for Italy. Like, they have a quite exciting team. A team that is giving a lot, and that is different from the last few years. So I think Italy usually struggled in these types of games, like against Greece, but I think it's a group that will manage to grind out whatever result they need.
Yeah, I have to agree. And if I can add something, I wish Gagliardini would be part of this team, just because as it was for Barella, you were saying maybe Gardini having some minutes to play will help also our team and Conte to put it back and give Sensi or Brozovic some minutes of rest. Well, what's your thought, Anthony?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it because, as you both said, this is a really good, fresh, new look Italian team under Mancini. And Mancini with, a lot more time than you get when you coach domestically at a club level where you're playing sometimes multiple fixtures per week. Mancini's got a lot of time to think about what he wants, tactic-wise, personnel-wise. He's able to put theory into practice along a long timeline of thinking and planning, which I think is what's coming together in some of these qualifiers. Even in the past, when Italy were a stronger nation, they would still struggle in qualifiers against smaller teams. Right? It's the Italian way, right? If you don't concede a goal, you can't lose the game. So 1-0 is fine. But what we've seen in these qualifiers, they've really taken an authoritarian approach, and they've taken the game by the neck, and it doesn't matter what opponent it is. Italy has come out of every one of their 6 games looking comfortably like the better side, whether it's against Liechtenstein, who's at the bottom, or whether it's Finland or Bosnia, which is one of the tougher opponents in the group. I think that Italy's done very well. I think Barella, who, I'm sure everyone who listens to the brand of the podcast is sick of me praising him, but Barella's been fantastic on international level, and he's translated that form for us. And I just love seeing him have a great time on the pitch because he's one of my favorite players. In terms of who's going to play for the Italian side, I think a player who's very, very good at club level but doesn't translate that at international level is Ciro Immobile. I'd like to see him get a run out because he's in very good form in his last 2 games for Lazio. And yeah, I'm not too sure who would play up top with him, but there's definitely going to be minutes for Barella and D'Ambrosio on our part. And I don't think Candreva was called up. Was Candreva called up, Alessandro?
Not that I don't think so. Not this time.
Probably not. Probably not. But yeah, that's all I'd have to say for the game against Greece.
All right. So you were mentioning planning and thinking ahead. Coming back to our team, if you look ahead, we're gonna have 5 teams coming up. At least in Serie A, they are on the lower table, on the lower part of the table. So I was gonna ask you, what do you think we should expect from the games we're gonna have with Sassuolo, Parma, Brescia, Bologna, and Verona? Do you think we're gonna be able to stay up there next to Juventus?
I think totally depends on how the team, if the key players remain without injuries, how much will we spend in the Champions League? Like on the paper, those are games that Inter should be winning, in my opinion. And I think that this season has showed that we can beat the small ones a bit easier than we've done before. However, I think that we will risk a bit just after the national team break because the teams that have many national team players usually suffer the game just after, and also the games after the Champions League. I think that Conte has been very good at rotating. Like I think against Sampdoria, we changed 4 or 5 or 6 players from the starting 11, and I think that if we keep doing that, it will turn out well. Like I think we will be up there. I think we should be expecting to be up there, but it wouldn't surprise me to drop points after the Champions League games because, going from playing at a full Signal Iduna Park against Dortmund to play at some potato field away against some team that are going to line up 11 men in their penalty area and defend, it's just mentality-wise, it's really hard to tackle. But seeing that we are facing, in my opinion, only worse teams in the coming rounds, it should be wins. Like it should be results. It should be Inter being up there because then when the opponents will be tougher, that's when you have to make the difference. So yeah, we have to try to beat Sassuolo for once as well because they have been a boogie team for too long, and we can't keep that happening. Sassuolo, Parma, Brescia away, Bologna
Yeah.
away. It's not easy games, but I think
Yeah.
this Inter, like with Conte, I don't think Conte will, tolerate losing two of these games. I think he will want every single win, and he will play for that. So I think that in the coming five, we should be getting 4 wins and the draw. I'll sign up for that. It'll probably end up differently, but I think that should be the mission.
Yeah, I have to add before asking Anthony what he thinks about this, that we're gonna play Borussia at home and away between all these 5 games. So, Anthony, what do you think?
Before that, just to mention, when we play Greece, the Azzurri, there are a couple of threats. Manolas and Socrates are two good centre backs, and Kostas Mitroglou isn't too bad. So I just thought I'd get that in there because I've got a lot of Greek friends who'll probably pull me up on it later on when I see them. In terms of the
Okay.
fixtures that we come up against, like Conte's the type of manager to not focus on a game that's 2 matches, 3 matches away. Every match is war. He was asked, about the match against Juventus before Barcelona, and he said, no, all I think about is Barcelona. He was asked about Barcelona, prior to when we had to play Udinese. Sorry, not Udinese, sorry, Sampdoria, and he says, all I think about is Sampdoria. So at the moment, there's only one thing on Antonio Conte's mind, and it's Sassuolo. And because Sassuolo, when you look at those other 5 fixtures, Sassuolo's probably the trickiest one of the bunch. As Sia mentioned, they've been a bogey team since we slapped them up 7-1 twice or whatever it was. So it's time to refocus and get 3 points against this team, because 3 points at Sassuolo will be the difference between 13 or 15 points in total at the end of that period, or maybe only 8 to 9 to 10, which isn't where we want to be. It's not good enough this season. With Conte has come this far, oiling this team, and we expect them to carry it on as consistently as possible. So for me, bare minimum 4 wins there, but they're not easy. Brescia looks very, very motivated. For Bologna, they play every fixture for Mihailovic, so they're always going to give 110%. So there's really no such thing as an easy fixture anymore. It's just a matter of being the better opponent on the day with the quality that you've got.
Yeah, I have to agree with all this. Thank you, Anthony. And I have just a couple of quick questions for Sia. I know he's really busy, and I want to thank you again for being with us. So we have a question from Mark from London. It says, so far this season, we have seen a number of injuries occur quickly, and is asking, why do you think this is?
For me, I think the injuries should depend on a couple of players playing too much. I like not that they play too much, but Sensi. I don't think it's coincidence that he's getting injured, because I think he's played almost every game, every 90 minutes. He hasn't gotten to rest since that season started. Like, he's been playing all the games at all times, more or less. And I think that in the longer run, when your team is short, like, that is what happens. And as like for me, I don't think there's been too many injuries this season. Like, I think that the injuries have probably been normal, and I think that in some areas the team has been good enough to handle it. Like, I think it's clear that Lukaku is struggling with something. I think it's clear that Godin, at his age, he needs a bit of time to get into it. But I think the type of injury that has me a bit worried is the type that happens to Sensi, because he will be gone for about 2 weeks, I think. But if it would have gone worse, he could have been out for at least a month. So, I think that's the type of injury that we need to be looking at. But it's what will happen when every game is counting as 100%. People won't be able to rest. And, playing 7 games in 23 or 4 days, that's going to lead to injuries. I think the team has looked in really good physical shape. I think they've looked like they want to run and fight in every game. So I can't complain on that. But I think that the injuries that we've had is partly due to too many games, too much intensity, and not being able to recover. Because for Lukaku, for example, like he was injured, so he missed out in the Champions League, right? But
Hmm.
just the 1 week or 2 weeks before that, he was in doubt. He was playing with pain against Slavia, I think. So there are a lot of players probably that are playing with pain or with minor injuries that can't recover as they would want to because of the tough schedule. And that's just normal football today. So, yeah, I think the high intensity of the matchups and not being able to recover as you would want to.
Anthony, you have anything to add?
Yeah, no, all said pretty well. See, I think it's just the physical demand on some of these players and, switching up their regime to something that they're used to. We all saw Intermedia House and, shout out to the good work they do. We don't miss a thing as fans at the moment. They were photographing and videoing all the training sessions, and Conte was getting these guys going every single time. And like Sia was said, that type of injury that Sensi does, that's a groin pull, it's a muscular pull. So it's a cumulative effect of ongoing stress on the muscle. It's not like he stepped the wrong way and twisted something. It's a cumulative effect. Same with Lukaku's. That's why sometimes you can see them play half a game still here and there, or sometimes as if the game has to be a 100% focus, all or nothing game, you'd still rather play them if ands or buts. So I would say it's just a cumulative effect of fatigue and stress, and this is why it's important. If you want to win silverware and challenge for titles, you need to have players on your bench that are just as good as the players on the field. That way you don't have to stress too much about these things.
I
I know that we had a... Yeah, go on,
ju-
Alessandro.
just yeah, sorry, it's me. I think just
Oh,
another
sorry.
thing with Lukaku, I think it's worth mentioning. Like for him, it's also probably about his physique changing a bit because he's losing what 5 kilos in during the summer. Like it's bound for him to have some change or things that he hasn't suffered from before because he's changing country, he's changing his way of eating, he's changing his way of training. Like there's a lot of these things, at least for him, that is a heavy guy, who's a big guy, who's very explosive as well. Like I think it's just normal sports that he will suffer from minor maybe problems, but more times in the beginning until he gets into it 100%.
Yeah, I would have to agree there as well. We had a couple of other questions as well to finish off. First of all, Sia, we've already spoken about this, but what do you think is the most realistic outcome now, and how do you feel about Inter leaving the San Siro for a new stadium?
Um, I wouldn't change San Siro, the stadium, for any stadium in the world, but today's football leaves, I think, no choice because it's about revenue, it's about modern standards, it's about being able to make money not only on the game day but maybe in week when there's not even a game. So I I understand the motives of the clubs of doing this, but as football fan, as San Siro regular, I wouldn't change the stadium for anything in the world. I have to, I think, accept the fact that it will happen sooner or later. I think later because Italy and politics and permissions and stuff like that. But I think we're probably looking at a 5 or 10 year period until everything is going. But just straightly speaking from the heart, I wouldn't change San Siro for anything. And just a minor disappointment that I've had with the new project is that none of them kind of feel like San Siro. No, I like both the designs, they look great, but I would have just loved to have a minor detail from San Siro in the new stadium. But yeah, that's it. I understand why the clubs want to, do what they do. So I'll have to accept that. I have to be happy for the fact that I've seen a lot of games at San Siro and I've experienced the stadium a lot. But the atmosphere that is in there, on the late nights and the way that stadium feels and breathes football, all of the history in it, like I'd never leave it, speaking from the heart.
No, well said, man. And finally, to finish off, word has come out via Marotta and Zhang that, we will be fulfilling Conte's wishes. We'll be getting another central midfielder in January, potentially one of world-class quality. Just quickly, guys, if there was one name, just one, let's not keep it too long, Alessandro, one central midfield player in the world, who would you bring in?
I think I answered this before. I'm gonna switch up last second. Probably the easiest one, Milinkovic Savic, just because he already knows Serie A, he already knows what's going on, and it would be like super easy to fit in. And I'm pretty sure Conte will make an incredible player out of him.
Yeah, absolutely. Young, versatile, can play across the middle three. He'd be my vote as well. And Sia, if you could choose one central midfield player to come in for Inter, it can be from anywhere in the world, who would you pick?
I think Milinkovic Savic is probably the most clear choice. I wanted him in the summer. I would have taken Vidal as well. I think he showed that when he came on that he's still a good player. No, I think it's just so hard to think about anyone else when you see Sergey. I think he has the physicality. He's a big guy. He's a strong guy. He scores goals. He assists. I think for Conte, it's probably if when he goes to sleep at night, he probably dreams about Milinkovic Savic. So yeah, for him is the perfect player.
I hope not.
I really liked I really liked Fabian Ruiz. Like when he was at Betis and had a 30 million buyout clause, I think that's the kind of player that I would have bought in my sleep as well. But now he's at Napoli, so it's more difficult. But I think Sergey is probably the only player that not only Inter needs, but that Inter can probably sign without problems as well. So that's my guy.
Nice one. All right, we've gone a little bit over time today, but all for a good reason. It has been an absolute pleasure. I just want to thank Alessandro for coming on again, man. Thanks again.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.
And to our special guest, Sia, thank you very much. It was great speaking to you, man. We'll hear from you soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Keep up the
Anytime,
good
man.
work.
Will do. And from all of us here at Inter Worldwide, ciao ragazzi.
Ciao.